I am not your grandmother. You're a stranger to me because you're the child of a low-educated woman, so you don't get a present. You're being ridiculously presumptuous.
It is truly blatant grandchildren discrimination. While the other grandchildren receive gifts, my daughter is left out. If we're strangers, so be it. From now on, we will remain strangers. Goodbye, mother-in-law. I am Kate Woods, 35 years old. I got married at 28 and now live as a family of 3 with my husband and our daughter. Our daughter's name is Zoe, a lively 5-year-old preschooler. Every day, she enjoys her time at preschool, coming home covered in mud. Her cheerful smile keeps me going through my busy days. However, this happiness didn't come easily. Up until recently, things were far from smooth. I grew up in a foster care facility starting in middle school. My dad passed away in a car accident when I was little, leaving my mom to raise me on her own. But the burden must have been too much. When I was in middle school, my mom also passed away. With no relatives to turn to, I ended up in a foster care facility. There were younger children there, each carrying their own family struggles. As one of the older kids, I naturally took on the role of looking after them. After graduating high school, I had no choice but to live independently. I moved into a cheap apartment and got a clerical job at a company. The once lively life became quiet all of a sudden, and I often felt lonely. However, as the months passed, I grew accustomed to this quiet lifestyle and found some peace of mind. One day, I happened to pass by a wedding venue and saw a bride and groom descending the chapel stairs, with the bride wearing a beautiful wedding dress. At that moment, the world before me seemed to come alive with vibrant colors. Until then, I had been aimlessly drifting through life, but at that moment, a grand dream was born in me. From then on, I worked hard toward my dream. A few years later, at the wedding of my friend from the foster care facility, I met a man. That man was my now husband, Kyle Woods.
Are you a friend of the bride?
Yes, we grew up together. Are you acquainted with the groom?
Yes, we work at the same company. He's my colleague.
As we casually chatted, we hit it off. We began dating soon after. Kyle graduated from a prestigious university and works in the sales department of a trading company, what you'd call an elite. But he's a kind person who never flaunts it. His gentle nature attracted me, and we eventually got engaged. Then came the day to visit Kyle's family home for the first time. This day turned out to be one of the most unforgettable moments of my life. Nice to meet you. I'm Kate White, and I'm dating Kyle. Wearing a brand new blue dress I had chosen for this occasion, I greeted his family. Kyle's father had passed away a few years earlier due to his illness, so his mother lived alone.
Nice to meet you. So, you're the one Kyle chose. I was looking forward to meeting the wonderful woman he mentioned, but you're quite plain.
Well, that was an unexpected punch right from the start. Perhaps Kyle takes after his father in kindness.
Mom, what are you saying? Of course, she dressed modestly for a formal introduction.
Kyle quickly stepped in to defend me, giving me a sense of relief. However, his mother didn't ease up on her criticism.
Which university did you attend? After all, your career depends on where you went to school, right? My son, my oldest son, and his wife all graduated from the same university. In other words, we're an elite family. What about you?
His mother, Susan, looked me over as if she were sizing me up. Of course, I didn't have the opportunity to attend college.
What? Don't tell me you only graduated high school?
I couldn't lie, so I said, well, I didn't go to college, but I did attend a fashion school. Before I could finish, my mother-in-law's eyes widened.
Wait a minute, Kyle. Is she serious? She didn't even go to college. Are you okay with her?
She almost lunged at him, demanding an explanation. Kyle smiled and calmly replied,
It's fine. Kate is much more capable than most college graduates.
She shot back.
What are you talking about? Your job depends on your college degree. You got into that top company because of your prestigious university, didn't you? Honestly, what were her parents thinking? Speaking of which, what do Kate's parents do?
Well, my parents have passed away. My dad died when I was young, and my mom passed away when I was in middle school.
What? Then who raised you? Did you live with some relatives who took you in?
No, I grew up in a foster care facility.
Excuse me? Wait a second. Are you telling me you were raised in a foster facility? No wonder you're poorly educated.
Her attitude was dripping with disdain as she looked down on me.
Kyle, break things off with this girl. Someone raised in a foster facility can't possibly turn out well.
Mom, calm down. Her background doesn't matter. Kate has worked so hard on her own and achieved so much. That's why she's successful in her.
Just as Kyle began to speak, she interrupted, saying, "That's right. What kind of job you have is important. So, what do you do? What kind of work does someone with a low education and a foster care background do?" Well, I graduated from a fashion design school and now work. She cut me off.
Fashion design. Do you mean standing in a store saying, "Welcome," and selling clothes? That's not even a real job. It's something part-timers do. Oh, I get it. With only a high school diploma, you can't do much better.
No, I don't sell clothes, but I design them.
Design? Are you saying you work in a factory? That's even worse. I thought most clothing production had moved overseas, but to think there's a place like that nearby. Unbelievable.
She turned into a mocking expression.
Mom, Kate's designs are amazing. I was blown away the first time I saw her work.
But she interrupted him too.
Sure, I suppose it's impressive to be able to do something you can't. Especially since you were terrible at sewing, Kyle. I guess you'd find anyone who can use a sewing machine impressive.
Well, she wasn't entirely wrong. Kyle did genuinely admire my work.
Still, it's a bit much, isn't it, to think my son would call someone like this amazing. I thought he'd at least bring home someone more accomplished. Instead, he chooses a poorly educated factory worker.
Actually, Susan, I tried to explain again.
Don't call me so casually. Someone with no education or real career will just depend on Kyle's income after marriage, right? What happens to my monthly allowance then? Will it stop? I can't live without that money. Kyle, are you really going to marry this lowly woman and abandon your mom?
Her focus shifted entirely to her own financial worries rather than the marriage itself. As it turns out, Kyle had been sending her money every month to support her since she lived off her pension. He had told me about this when he proposed. Her husband had passed away, and with no other income, she struggled to make ends meet on her pension alone. However, since it was difficult for her to manage on her pension alone, Kyle had been sending her financial support since he became a working adult. It seemed that my mother-in-law was projecting her insecurities about the future onto me, the uneducated one. Kyle sensed her insecurity and reassured her, "Mom, don't worry. I'll continue the allowance. So please, give us your blessing." And with that, we managed to secure her reluctant approval for our marriage. Still, on that day, she never once called me by my name. A few months later, we held our wedding ceremony. However, Susan didn't attend. I had actually prepared a surprise for her at the wedding. That's why Kyle had insisted she absolutely had to attend, but she didn't come. But she refused, leaving Kyle deeply disappointed. This wedding turned out to be a chance for me to get closer to Emma, Kyle's brother's wife. Emma already had her first child and was currently 9 months pregnant with her second. Despite her condition, she attended our wedding. I asked the venue staff to ensure that all of Emma's drinks were non-alcoholic and to provide a blanket to keep her belly and feet warm. Perhaps because of that, she kindly said, "Kate, you're so thoughtful. And today's wedding is absolutely beautiful. You have such great taste. I'm so glad we'll get along." Honestly, after my experience with Susan, I was worried about getting along with my husband's family. But thanks to Emma, I felt like I could manage the relationships. A month later, Emma safely gave birth to her second baby. When I visited the hospital to congratulate her, I unexpectedly ran into Susan. "Oh, Susan."
I can't believe you went through with the wedding, even though I said I wouldn't attend.
Her sarcasm was already in full swing.
You came here to celebrate this little one, didn't you? Here, would you like to hold the baby?
Emma handed the baby to Susan, and it seemed the adorable baby melted her bitterness, at least temporarily, so she didn't direct any further sarcastic remarks at me. "Thank you so much, Emma." Even though Kyle and I were married, my relationship with Susan remained strained. After the wedding, I discovered I was pregnant, and the following year, I gave birth to my little girl. However, unlike with Emma, Susan didn't come to meet her newborn granddaughter. But Emma, despite having 2 young children of her own, came to visit me.
Kate, congratulations.
"Thank you, Emma. I'm sorry you went out of your way to come, especially with such young kids. You've also given me so much advice during my pregnancy."
Don't worry about it. As a fellow mom and your sister-in-law, it's only natural. The first pregnancy can feel so isolating, you know? It was the same for me. But since you don't have other family around and Susan doesn't seem like she'll show up.
Yeah, that's true. Although I informed Susan about my pregnancy, she never showed any concern for me. I decided not to force any interactions, thinking unnecessary stress wouldn't be good for my pregnancy. I took maternity leave and spent my days at home, relaxing before the birth. But as the due date approached, I couldn't help but feel anxious about whether everything would go smoothly. During those moments, it was Emma who often reached out to me. When I told her about my pregnancy, she immediately congratulated me. She gave me advice on how to deal with severe morning sickness and what to prepare before the baby's arrival. She was a dependable sister-in-law who truly supported me during a time when I felt so uncertain. And today, I finally gave birth without complications. While I was reflecting on all this, Emma gazed at my baby girl sleeping in her crib.
She's so adorable. Girls really are different, aren't they? I have 2 boys, and girls seem so soft and sweet. Seeing your baby makes me think having a girl would be wonderful. I wish Susan would come to see her.
I'd love for her to meet my daughter, but she still doesn't seem to like me. She contacts Kyle occasionally, but she won't see me.
Now that she's had such a lovely granddaughter, things might change. I'll support you both in getting along, even if it's just from the sidelines.
Emma said this with a warm smile. Unfortunately, not long after, Emma's family had to move overseas for a few years due to her husband's work.
Kate, I'm so sorry. I said I'd help, but now we won't see each other for a while. My husband's work assignment doesn't have an end date yet, so I'm not sure when we'll be back.
She came to tell me in person. Oh, don't worry about it. Thank you for always being there for me. You'll have so much to deal with, living abroad with such young kids. Please take care of yourself. After saying our goodbyes, Emma and her family left for their new life overseas. A while later, we decided to have a blessing ceremony for our daughter. The reason was that my mother-in-law lived alone, and the eldest son's family, whom she adored, had moved overseas. I thought she might feel lonely, so I invited her, but Susan, we're having a baptismal ceremony for Zoe soon. Would you like to come? I'd love for you to meet your granddaughter.
What? You have the nerve to invite me like that? You're probably just fishing for a gift, aren't you? I can see right through your pathetic schemes.
What?
Kyle has become so greedy about money since marrying you, having a child when you don't even earn much. You promised back then.
Promised. Susan, what are you talking about?
Don't play dumb with me. You stole Kyle from me, and now you're pulling this? This is why I can't stand lowly, uneducated women like you.
With that, she abruptly hung up the phone. I had no idea what was happening. 5 years have passed since then. My relationship with my mother-in-law remains as strained as ever. No matter when I visit, she always gives me a sharp, glaring look. But one day, to my surprise, I received a call from her.
Hello?
Wait, Susan, is everything okay? Did something happen? Since it was unusual for her to call me, I thought something might have happened.
Do I need a reason to call? Anyway, guess what? They're coming back.
She sounded unusually cheerful. What? Who's coming back?
Really? You still don't know this family at all. My eldest son's family is finally coming back from overseas. I'm so excited to see my adorable grandkids again.
While she always treats us coldly, Susan has an inexplicable fondness for her eldest son's family. You do have another adorable granddaughter, you know. I muttered this to myself. We've introduced our daughter to her during Christmas holidays and summer visits, but she's always indifferent. It feels like she still doesn't acknowledge my daughter as her grandchild. Susan continued talking.
So we're throwing a welcome party at my house. You'll take care of all the preparations. Even someone with your background should be able to handle that, right? Since it's late December, make it a Christmas-themed party. You work in fashion, so you should be able to manage that, right?
Sure, I was happy about Emma's family returning. I didn't mind decorating or preparing for the party, but the way she asked irked me. Still, Susan seemed to be in a good mood, and I thought this might be a chance to improve our relationship. At least, that's what I naively hoped at the time. The day of the party arrived. To get things ready before Emma's family arrived, I went to Susan's house with my 5-year-old daughter Zoe. We loaded the car with a medium-sized Christmas tree, ornaments, and ingredients from home. As expected, Susan hadn't prepared anything. The moment she saw Zoe and me, she said,
You're late. Hurry up. My eldest son, Mark's family will be here soon. Oh, where's Kyle?
Sorry, Kyle got called into work. He'll be coming later. Yes, my husband was originally supposed to come with us, but he was called into work at the last minute. So, it ended up just the two of us arriving first.
Oh, fine. Just get to it.
As usual, she was curt. By now, both Zoe and I were used to her demeanor. While we were decorating together, we heard the front door open.
Hello, Susan. How have you been?
Emma entered with her two now much bigger children. Susan's attitude changed instantly as she warmly greeted them.
Welcome. I'm doing great. It must have been cold outside. Come in, come in. Oh, wait, just you and the kids. Where's Mark?
Sorry. Mark had to stop by the office to check in since we just got back. He'll be here later.
Oh, what a shame. So this is John, and that's Alex. Grandma's here. Boys are just so precious, aren't they?
She doted on Emma's kids so openly that it was almost embarrassing. Noticing that Zoe and I were there, Emma turned to us.
Oh, Kate, you're here too. It's been a while, Zoe. You've grown so much. Isn't it fun dressing up girls? Today's outfit is adorable. Your mom has such great taste.
Zoe beamed with happiness, smiling ear to ear. Emma's thoughtful nature was, as always, remarkable. But Susan ignored Emma's kind words and suddenly said, as if something had just occurred to her,
Oh, that's right. It's a Christmas party, so we need to give presents to these adorable kids.
With that, she brought out some presents.
Here, this is for John, and this one's for Alex. I hope you both like them.
Thank you, Grandma.
Hearing the children's gratitude, Susan beamed at Emma's kids and said, These children are so smart. They know how to properly say thank you. Seeing this, Zoe hesitantly asked,
Grandma, what about mine?
Susan's expression instantly turned furious.
Your present. How greedy of you. How dare you be so presumptuous? I'm not your grandmother, so of course there's no present for you.
What?
Zoe was visibly shocked and immediately burst into tears.
Mom, why am I being scolded? Did I do something bad?
She clung to me, crying uncontrollably. Susan then turned her venomous words toward me.
Teaching your child to beg for presents. This is exactly why I can't stand lowly, uneducated people like you. You and your daughter are a stain on this family. My sons all graduated from prestigious universities, but you're just a high school graduate who can only do low-level work. People like you are no family of mine. You're strangers.
That was the last straw. Susan, that's too much. Today, you had Zoe and me decorate your house, and now you're calling us strangers?
Oh, but you are strangers. You're not related to me by blood. And who's to say the child you gave birth to is even Kyle's? I wouldn't be surprised if someone with your background had questionable relationships.
At this point, even Emma intervened.
Please, Susan, the kids are here.
Oh, right, the kids are here. As expected of Emma, your level of consideration is just on another level. Can you see the difference here? There's a world of difference between someone like Emma, a university graduate, and someone like you without education. Emma, without me even asking, has been sending me monthly support. Over the years, she's given me about $10,000 annually. Thanks to her, I can live comfortably.
Emma looked completely bewildered by this comment. Despite being reminded about the kids' presence, Susan forgot again and laughed haughtily. I cannot stand it anymore. Not only does she treat me poorly, but now she's treating Zoe the same way. I've had enough. I had endured so much because she was the woman who gave birth to my husband. But if she was going to make my daughter feel this way, I wouldn't tolerate it any longer. I made a decision then and there.
Susan, please calm down.
Emma tried to calm Susan. Emma, it was lovely seeing you today. I really wanted to enjoy the party with the kids, but given the situation, we'll have to leave early. With that, I left the house with Zoe. As I glanced back at Susan on the way out, she looked at us with a smug, disdainful expression. Just as we stepped outside, we ran into Kyle, who had just arrived from work. I told him everything that had happened. Kyle, I need to talk to you. I've tried to endure this because she's your mom, but I've reached my limit. I'm done with this promise. She always treats us as strangers, so I don't want to deal with her anymore. Kyle agreed with my decision. A month later, the doorbell rang. To my surprise, it was Susan. The moment I opened the door, she barged into our home.
Is Emma here? Mark said she'd be here. Oh, there you are.
Without acknowledging Zoe or me, she found Emma and sat down in front of her. Yes, Emma and her children were visiting that day. Having finally settled back after returning from overseas, we had planned to let the kids play while catching up. Susan, what brings you here? Ignoring me entirely, she forced a smile and spoke to Emma.
Hey, Emma, did you forget something this month?
What?
Emma looked puzzled.
Well, you know that. You've been so busy since returning from overseas. It's understandable if you forgot.
Susan kept rambling to herself.
Well, Susan, what are you talking about? I honestly have no idea.
Don't play dumb. Oh, are you holding back because of that poor, uneducated person over there? As expected, Emma, your consideration for others is amazing. Don't worry about someone like her. Just ignore her. So, when can I expect this month's support? I have some urgent expenses coming up.
What?
Emma looked genuinely confused.
Susan, I really don't know what you're talking about. Support? What do you mean?
I'm talking about money. You've been transferring money to me every month, haven't you?
Susan smiled awkwardly as she leaned toward Emma. Seeing this, Emma hesitantly said,
Well, Susan, I think you might be mistaken. I've never done anything like that.
For a moment, Susan froze. Never? Not even once?
Now it was her turn to look bewildered. Looking at it, Emma suddenly said,
Why would you think I've been sending you money? Have I ever said anything like that? Honestly, we don't have that kind of extra money.
Susan pulled out a bank statement from her bag and opened it, saying, But the transfers have been coming in under your name for years.
Yes, it's definitely being transferred every month.
As Susan confirmed this, Emma leaned in and said, Susan, may I take a look at that? She then took the statement from her.
Susan, this isn't my name. Look, it says Kate Woods, not me.
What? Kate Woods? Wait, does that mean?
She slowly turned to look at me.
Well, Kate, are you the one who's been sending the money?
What happened to her usual way of dismissively calling me you? For the first time, my mother-in-law called me by my name. It seemed she had always assumed it was Emma who had been providing the support. She finally muttered, But why would you do that? Why? Because you told me during our wedding meeting that continuing the support was a condition for you approving our marriage. So I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, I guess I did say that. But before, wasn't the money coming from Kyle? Then it stopped for some reason.
She seemed to be trying to make sense of everything but appeared stuck. So I explained. Susan, maybe you forgot, but I've never stopped the support. After the wedding, Kyle took on a mortgage for our new home, so I told you I'd take over the payments. Don't you remember?
Well, I think you might have said something like that.
She stared off into space. The truth is, we've been the ones providing her financial support all this time. When Kyle took on the financial burden of our mortgage, I took over the payments to her. I was sure I had explained that before. In other words, Susan had been misunderstanding the situation all along. Still looking flustered, she turned to me and asked,
But how is that possible? You didn't go to college, and your job is selling clothes, wasn't it? Or no, wait, you work in a factory, right?
I decided to correct her, once again. Susan, I don't work in a factory. I've told you this before.
But if you make clothes, doesn't that mean you work in a factory? Either way, if you've been sending me money, I guess your income is better than I thought. For someone uneducated.
Before I could respond, Kyle stepped in. Since it was his day off, he was home.
Mom, isn't it time you dropped this obsession with education? Kate has an amazing career. She's an up-and-coming bridal designer, for heaven's sake.
What?
Susan looked utterly baffled.
You mean designer, as in someone who designs clothes?
That's right. And not just any designer. Kate is a custom wedding dress designer who's been gaining recognition in the industry over the past few years.
What?
Yes, in fact, my profession is a designer, specializing in bridal wear. After leaving the foster care facility and working at a company, I felt unfulfilled in my job. At that moment, I saw a radiant bride in a beautiful wedding dress, and I thought, I want to do a job that helps someone shine like that. So I quit my job, worked part-time, and enrolled in a fashion design school. After graduating, I joined a company that specialized in custom wedding dresses. Under the guidance of a senior designer, I honed my skills and eventually became a full-fledged designer. When I was pregnant with Zoe, I took maternity and parental leave, but now I've returned to work and resumed my career. Seeing Susan's disbelief, Kyle brought over a bridal magazine.
Look at this. See the designer credited for these dresses? That's Kate.
The magazine featured several dresses that I had designed. In recent years, my work has gained a strong reputation, leading to a special feature on my designs.
What? A high school graduate's name in a magazine?
Susan sat down on the floor, visibly stunned. Seeing that, Emma recalled my wedding and said,
Susan, you didn't know about Kate's work? She's one of the top 5 bridal designers in the industry. I've seen her name in magazines often. The dress she wore at her wedding was absolutely stunning.
Why didn't you tell me about your job?
This time, she suddenly snapped, her face turning bright red, so I calmly explained. I tried to tell you multiple times, but you wouldn't listen. And when I planned to show you at the wedding by wearing one of my own designs, you didn't even attend.
What?
Yes, I designed and wore my own wedding dress, hoping my mother-in-law would see and understand my work. And yet, it was my mother-in-law who completely stood us up.
I can't believe Kate is such a renowned designer.
She muttered as if trying to process it. Then, as if snapping out of it, she said,
Then why wasn't there a payment this month? If you're such a famous designer, you must be doing well financially. Don't be stingy.
Susan, did you forget our conversation from last time?
What?
Who was it that called Zoe and me strangers recently? If you're going to treat us like strangers, I'll do the same. And strangers don't need to send financial support. So, I've stopped.
Wait, but I had a trip planned with my friends this month. Without that support, my glamorous life is over. I won't be able to shop or go out with my friends anymore.
Her face turned pale, as if the world were ending.
Mom, Kate wasn't sending you money for your entertainment. She kept her promise from when we got married. Yet you misunderstood and then treated her and Zoe so poorly.
Kyle shook his head. Susan turned to me, pleading,
Kate, please don't stop your support. That money brought joy to my life. Without it, I'll have to live on just $650 a month from my pension. My life will become so dull.
But you can still manage, right? I don't have the kind of volunteer spirit to give money to strangers. So, the support ends here.
No.
Susan let out a wail, her face filled with despair. But it seemed she wasn't giving up yet. With a forced smile, she leaned toward me.
Strangers? Oh no, Kate, you're a cherished part of this family. Everything before was just a little misunderstanding, right? So how about resuming the support?
The first smile she ever directed at me was purely for financial gain. She must have thought this would win me over, but it wouldn't. She might call it a misunderstanding, but Zoe and I endured painful treatment because of it. That's not something I could simply overlook. Recalling the recent events, I calmly said, "Susan, you may call it a small misunderstanding, but it hurt Zoe deeply. Kyle and I have discussed it, and we're considering cutting ties with you entirely." Hearing this, she turned to Kyle, desperately.
Kyle, please don't cut ties with me. I only have you and Mark left.
Through tears, Susan pleaded, but my husband replied calmly,
Mom, you're the one who treated my family as strangers. Even though you've said countless hurtful things, I thought eventually you'd come to accept us. I guess I was wrong. I'm truly grateful for everything you did to raise me, but I can't stay connected to someone who hurts my wife and child. Have you even once apologized to Kate? Have you reflected on your actions?
Please, don't be so harsh on me. Fine, I'll apologize now. Kyle, Kate, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
Susan sobbed uncontrollably, her face a mess of tears, and my husband looked visibly uncomfortable watching her. However, her final words seemed to solidify his resolve.
I need the support money. Without it, I can't go out with my friends anymore. Without money, they'll stop associating with me.
Sigh. So, in the end, it wasn't about family at all. She just wanted the financial support.
All right, we're done here. Please leave now.
Kyle said coldly, ushering her out. After that, we cut ties with my mother-in-law, though we maintained a relationship with Emma and her family. However, Emma also had her own struggles with Susan. Apparently, after I stopped the financial support, she started pestering Emma's family for money instead.
Emma, I really want to go out with my friends this month, but I'm short on cash. Could you send me a little support money?
Apparently, she called with similar requests every month. But Emma was a stay-at-home mom, and while her husband was a successful salesman with a prestigious degree, raising children is expensive for everyone. Their mortgage and car payments were also a burden. You'd think she could understand that, but it seemed she only cared about herself. After persistently badgering them for money, Emma's husband finally told her they'd cut ties if it continued. After that, she reportedly became much quieter. Because of this, Emma's family hasn't completely cut ties with her, but they seem to be growing increasingly distant. A few months later, I unexpectedly ran into Susan. It happened at a supermarket one evening after 7 p.m. Zoe was with Kyle, so I didn't need to worry about her. Sigh. I was running late again today. Recently, international orders have increased, and I've been traveling overseas frequently for work. That's how well my business has been going. Even though I was busy, I wanted to relax and spend quality time with my family when I was home, so I decided to keep dinner simple. That's why I stopped by the supermarket to pick up some ready-made meals. I had never run into her at this supermarket before, so I wasn't prepared for it. I thought about pretending not to notice her, but Susan was acting suspiciously. At the prepared food section, I assumed she was worried about being seen picking items with discount stickers, but that wasn't it. Instead of looking for half-off stickers, she directly stuffed the food into her bag. I never imagined I'd witness a family member committing a crime. "Susan!" I called out impulsively. She froze and turned to me.
Oh, Kate, This isn't what it looks like. I just put it in the wrong place by mistake. But now that I look at it, I don't need it after all. Goodbye.
Saying that, she put the pack of prepared food back on the shelf and quickly walked away from me. I suppose I stopped her from committing a crime. A few months later, Emma told me Susan had become a recluse. Perhaps due to emotional stress, Susan began shoplifting repeatedly and eventually became a habitual offender. She kept shoplifting at nearby grocery stores, which eventually made her infamous in the neighborhood. Children called her the shoplifting grandma, and adults treated her with disdain. Because of all this, she stopped interacting with her neighbors entirely and became a recluse. It was hard to believe that someone who once loved going out with her friends had ended up like this. Well, it seemed like a case of karma finally catching up with her. 3 years later, I became a world-renowned bridal designer. My fame skyrocketed when a globally recognized artist wore one of my dresses at her wedding. Now, my work takes me all over the world.
Mom, you're so cool. Someday, you'll make my wedding dress too, right?
Thinking about my daughter's wedding, it's still far off in the future, but I vowed to keep working hard until that day.